And welcome back to another daily devotion. I am Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and this devotion is for Wednesday, March 6th of 2024. We're in the Gospel of Mark, and today we are in the 11th chapter. I'm going to look at verses 15 to 19 today. Chapter 11 is the beginning of the end for Jesus. This is the final. The rest of the book is from chapter 11 on, is that final week of Jesus' life. Now, today we are still on Monday of the week. Yesterday we started Monday with the cursing of the fig tree as Jesus is coming in to the city from Bethany. And we talked about that. That was part one of it yesterday. Now, the part two of the cursing of the fig tree will be tomorrow because this story kind of bookends this story we're dealing with today. We'll talk about that tomorrow, what exactly that means and why in the world did Mark do that. What was the, other than chronological, but there's a point to that as to why he's brought that in here. But today we're dealing with the cleansing of the temple, which is a story we find in all four of the Gospels. It's in the three synoptic Gospels, in Mark, Matthew, and Luke, and it's at the end of his ministry. It's in this final week in all three of those. All the other two books, Matthew and Luke, are using Mark as part of their source material, so that's not a real surprise. Now in John, this story comes in at the beginning of the ministry. Now we have to also remember that John's gospel has about a 3-year ministry for Jesus, whereas Mark, Matthew, and Luke, it's maybe 10 months to 12 months that his ministry is. So there are some differences in the storytelling there, but nonetheless, this story is in all four, and it is an important story. So let's talk about the cleansing of the temple. And again, tomorrow we'll deal with, again, part two of the withered fig tree. Talk about that tomorrow. So without further ado, Mark chapter 11, verses 15 to 19. And they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he taught and said to them, Is it not written, My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations? But you have made it a den of robbers. And the chief priests and the scribes heard it and sought a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the multitude was astonished at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out of the city. Okay, Jesus went out of the city, not the scribes and the whatnot, chief priests and scribes. So Jesus has come into the temple. He has found these money changers and these people that are selling sacrificial animals. Now, these guys are either working for the priests or they're working with by the blessing and with some kind of an agreement, no doubt, a financial arrangement with the priest, because when you came into the temple, you couldn't give your offerings in any kind of money from your homeland because it have a graven image on it. That's no. You can't put into the offering an image that has a stamped on it your king's face, which most of the money would have had somebody's face on it, Caesar's face, most likely in this part of the world. This would be Caesar Tiberius. But nonetheless, you had to convert your money into temple coins. And you're at the risk of the money changers as to what kind of conversion rate they're going to give you based on where you're coming from. Because people are coming from all over the place. The Jewish people had to come to the festivals, to Passover. It was required that they do that a certain number of times in their life. And if they were within traveling distance, they were supposed to do it every year. So you were forced to convert your normal coins into temple coins, and you're at the mercy again of the money changers and what kind of an exchange rate they're going to give you. No doubt the exchange rate was favoring them. That was the idea. They're making money off of this whole thing, is what the point is. And that's a problem. They're making money off of the sacrificial system, and the priests are in on it. They're getting kickbacks from it. Same way with the animals. You could bring your own animals to be sacrificed, pigeons and lambs and whatnot, but the priests are going to inspect them. And if you bring in a white lamb and they find, a black hair, oh my gosh, that's not going to work, or your pigeon has got something wrong with it, can't have any kind of imperfections, they can't have a broken wing or whatever. broken feathers and things like that. They would refuse them to be used for your temple sacrifice. So you're running, if you bring your own animal in, you're running the risk of them being rejected. And then you're going to have to go and buy an animal from the folks there that are buying and selling the sacrificial animals. Now, those animals have already been pre-approved by the priest, so you buy one of them, you know that it's going to be accepted by the priest for the sacrifice. So that's what's going on. They are, and we have to also remember the story of Jesus being born in Bethlehem. That's where those sacrificial lambs were raised. Was out, and that's those shepherds out in the field in Luke's gospel. Just an aside there. That's where those lambs are raised out there. So Jesus came from the land of the sacrificial lambs. All right, nonetheless, Jesus also, so he's trying to shut down this business, this money-making business. They've made it into a den of robbers. It's a house of prayer for all nations. Now, I'll backtrack there, address with that one. Then we'll deal with that den of robbers. Keep it straight, Roy. The house of prayer for all nations, that's from Isaiah. The den of robbers from Jeremiah. But the point is that we're supposed to be able to, this is in the court of the Gentiles. This is as far, if you're a Gentile and you've not converted to Judaism completely, this is as far as you can go. You can't go any further in because you have these different segments to the temple. Outer court is the court of the Gentiles. Anybody can come in there. The next court would be the court of the women. Everybody can go in there except the Gentiles. Then you have the court of the men. Guess what? Women can't go in there. Only the men can go in there. Then you have the court of the priest. Guess what? Only a priest can go into there. And then you have the Holy of Holies, and only the high priest can go in there, and only once a year. So that's the stratification of the temple. And so this is the outer place where people are worshiping out there, and all these people that are from all the nations. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations. These Gentile people, these people that are God-fearers, and there were a fair number of them. And remember, that's the whole thing with Paul, and why people got mad at Paul is he was poaching the God-fearers to bring them over to what I always called Jewish light. That's another topic for another day. I've talked about that in other devotions. But nonetheless, you've got all this disruption going on in the court of the Gentiles with all this, animals there, and you've got all these people, making all this racket. And then you've got these people, he says in verse 16, he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. Problem was the temple had different entrances to it, and people moving from one part of the city to another were taking shortcuts through the temple and through the court of the Gentiles. And Jesus this is disrupting people's worship. You're, pushing a cart or pulling something through there, or carrying a bunch of burdens through there, or just walking through and going to the other side, and you're not in any way, shape, or form there to worship. You're just using it as a shortcut. The temple's not a shortcut, is what Jesus' point is. So he's not letting people do that. No. You go back, go around the building, around the temple, which would have been added a long ways to your trip. And I'm sure people were not too excited about that. But nonetheless, that's what he's talking about. The den of robbers. Let's deal with the den of robbers you started to talk about, Roy. The den of robbers, there is a couple of things it could be. It's a place for these thieving people to hide, these thieving priests to hide, or these thieving businessmen that are in collusion with the priests. Or it's just a place, it's the place where they are congregating to fleece the poor people that are coming in and have no choice but to have to. I had an alert pop up on my phone. I'll read it later. That's why I looked up weird like that. But anyway, they had no choice but to deal with these people. So they're a den of robbers. You come on in. We'll fleece you good. Is our motto, and that's what they're doing. They're fleecing them good. And no pun intended on the lamb part there. Maybe there is. So at any rate, chief priests hear about this. He's making a fuss there. He's telling people what's going on. He's exposing their grift. Not too happy about that. So they decide, we got to get rid of this guy. And so they sought a way to destroy him. So Jesus is pretty much, he fired a bow with the triumphant entry across the the Romans ship, if you will, the fire shot across the bow, letting them know he's coming into the city with this triumphant entry that's paralleling the entry of Pilate on the opposite side of the city. And now he's just fired a shot across the priests and the scribes bow, and they now know that he's there disrupting things. And it's like, we can't have this. We're going to put this down. He's virtually signed his death warrant right here and now. But he intended to. This is all by plan. The week is going to fall into order the way that God intended it to, and Jesus has orchestrated it from the beginning of the triumphant entry, with the whole thing, with the colt that had never been ridden, we talked about a couple of days ago. All of it's been orchestrated to prepare the way. So, with that, we'll leave it for tomorrow. Tomorrow again will be part 2 of the withered pear tree, or not pear tree, fig tree. Get it right, Roy. Have a blessed day. Please, please, please be a blessing to someone today. If you enjoy these devotions, please do come back and join us again. Like and subscribe. Make a kind comment if you will. We'd love to see you again. All right? Take care. God bless. God loves you.